Good evening. Prior to us logging into this Zoom meeting, the board met through a different Zoom link for a closed executive session where our meeting was called to order. Tonight, we start with a public hearing on our budget. But before we start there, I just want to ask our board attorney, Mark Toscano, to verify that everything that's listed on our agenda as far as closed session topics is accurate and up to date. Does that reflect what we discussed?
Does. There's no additions tonight.
Okay, thank you. So we will begin now with our public hearing on the 2021-2022 budget. And for that, I will turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. David Adderhold.
Thank you, Michelle, and good evening, everyone. Just going to share screen. Just for members of the public, annually, the Board of Education is required to go through a process with respect to a public hearing for the official board adoption of the budget. We start each year with just a reminder of our mission statement to make sure that we're empowering all students to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength of character, and love of learning. And as we think about our budget, we think of it in sort of these 6 buckets. We think of it from the perspective of budget as a planning tool, that it considers contingencies, it manages risk, it's financially responsible to the taxpayers, it's a reflection of our values, and it considers safeguards and buffers. No one could have imagined in the 2019-2020 school year that we would be buying PPE. Right, so we had to think of contingencies and make sure that we were being fiscally responsible to meet the budgetary, but also the safety needs of our community. And same goes true for the 2021 school year. So we always have to be thinking forward about, we have to work within the constraints of the adopted budget as well. The budget has a budgetary process and timeline. And so we start our budget almost as soon as our budget is adopted for the following year. And we do that through thinking through our staffing, thinking through our programmatic spending, looking at our curriculum instruction, and we engage in a series of conversations over months as we think forward for our program for the 22-23 school year. Budget meetings start in December officially, as we have budget presentations between December and March. The board adopted the tentative budget on March 9th. The tentative budget is then sent to the county executive county superintendent, the county executive county superintendent and their budget staff review the budget. They review and approve the budget. Once we have their approval, we're allowed to then advertise the official budget, which has been done. And then here we are this evening for the official hearing. Want to say thank you and recognize our business officials, our business staff, Dr. Russo, Derek Mead, and the business staff at the board office and throughout the district, with all the different budget managers, building principals, building secretaries that work with the budget. Thanks to all of their hard work, the district has, for 12 consecutive years, received the Certificate of Excellence for Financial Reporting from ASBO. We also have received the meritorious budget for the last 6 years, and there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into making sure that there's good processes in place. The auditors for the last 3 years have had clean findings of the budget, and just a real credit to our budget staff throughout the district. A lot of times we forget that the district is also a very big organization with 1,300 employees and over $220 million of operating expenses. And there's a whole business team that works behind the scenes to make that all run, from HR to personnel to accounts payable to transportation and food services. So just a real credit to all those staff members. This year, not unlike others, but we do find ourselves in a position where we do have some increased tuitions from out-of-district costs. Out-of-district students, we are required again to meet the needs of our children and meet their needs through the IEPs for our special education. And sometimes that does mean that students need to be placed in programs outside of the district. Those outside programs have costs associated with them that go up at sometimes specific rates and sometimes outside of those rates. So this year we're seeing over 600,000 in additional tuition increases. This is year 2 under facilities of custodial contractual renewal. We had been with a company called Aramark. We left Aramark of May of last year. We're just coming up on our 1-year anniversary with ABM. ABM Transition has done a phenomenal job through the pandemic. We're very pleased with their services. At the same time ABM came on, they primarily moved to a cleaning program, and we brought back over 20 staff to district with operations foreman, mechanical, HVAC, plumbing, some of the trades, electric, and we also brought back our grounds team. So those now district staff associated with our building and grounds department, as well as outside custodial staff. This year we changed mid-year to being self-funded. And so by being self-funded, we're still with Aetna, but we do a lot more of the management work of the healthcare plan as a cost savings. So that's some additional work that our business team has taken on. But we also had a mid-year change in state health benefits. This is a change that was done through code. Educators were allowed to look at their plans through open enrollment and make a determination whether or not they wanted to go to a plan that had a cost savings to the educators. That cost savings to the educators did have some additional costs borne by the district. That is not a function of the educators, that's a function of the plan. So it is their right to select those plans. So there are some additional costs that were a mid-year cost for the district that was unanticipated at budget this time last year. But it also has some ongoing costs moving forward built within the budget. So we do some additional healthcare costs built within the budget. With special education, there also is some programmatic growth. And so you do have some additional staffing needs around special education. With transportation, and again, there's both route renewal, and there was approximately 50 routes in district that were not renewed. Renewals are when you basically a outside vendor can choose to just do an automatic renewal or force a rebid if it's after a certain amount of time. So we had just under 50 routes that had to go through a rebid. So they did borne some additional expenses. So we had to put some extra money towards transportation. And with special education programs, there have been some new developments that have brought forward some additional students needing services. And with that, there are some out of district tuition routes that were additional costs that we need to factor in. Further, you do have your contractual salary increases for your affiliated and non-affiliated staff. And as many know, we have a lot of construction happening around the district. The Energy Savings Improvement Program, otherwise known as the ESIP, is about $27 million worth of work of energy savings throughout the district. This is separate and apart from the referendum. As you may know, the ESIP is done on a 15-year a bond, essentially, a lease purchase. And so when you do that, you have to start paying your annual expenses. And so we are in year 2 of going into those costs. And when we are there, we're ahead of the savings because it's still being implemented. So we're sort of paying for some of the work as the work's happening. It's paying for some of the savings. So we had to increase some of the monies to make sure that before we receive the full operational savings. With respect to big picture items, many of these I just sort of spoke to, so I won't repeat those, but special ed healthcare costs, capital projects is each year we do some annual work around the district, usually above and beyond or associated to the referendum or above and beyond the referendum. And this year's no different. Technology, in no time more than the present have we seen the need to make sure that we're supporting our infrastructure, supporting the number of devices, making sure that our network is protected, and our staff does a tremendous job with that. We always look at staffing needs annually, and last year we did hold back on hiring over 20 budgeted positions, and we also reduced a bunch of positions that we're working to reestablish in this year's budget. Transportation, I noted, salary increases I noted, and then PPE and health and safety. We do anticipate that the need for health and safety measures in the fall and over the summer and throughout next school year are still going to be in place, whether with sanitation, with hand washing, with masking, with temp checks, and all the other components around some of the specialty equipment we need to buy for some of our more restrictive programs with some of the more close contact, some specific special education programs that have closer proximity. So there's some protective equipment that we bought for staff and students. So we know where there's going to be additional PPE and health and safety that we're going to have to consider throughout the year. And while there's a current downtrend occurring in New Jersey, we also know that at any point we can see an upsurge, and we need to be prepared for lots of different eventualities. So whether making sure that we have one-to-one access for the fall is really important, because we don't know what's coming at us as we sit here in April. It's hard to predict what September will truly look like from a device perspective. So we need to be ready with making sure there's a device for every child and staff member. So when you look at big picture expenditures, healthcare, a 500,000 increase, salary, negotiated salary increases of 2.27 million. Transportation, we have $1 million budgeted in. Technology, there's $255,000 worth of additional devices added to the budget line. It's essentially adding one more grade level of devices into the budget. Building and grounds. Now you see the caveat of community education there. Our community education program has traditionally contributed 400,000 into each year's annual budget towards building and grounds as a contribution from the facility rentals and the programs that are run in the after school and early morning and summer programs. This year, however, that program is running to really provide needed supports for families, and we're running at a loss this year. And so we are unable to make a direct contribution out of community ed. As a result, in the general fund budget, we have an increase of 400,000 in the building and grounds line, specifically attributed to the loss of 400,000 contribution from community ed. And then capital projects of $8.7 million of addition of capital expenses outside of any of the referendum work. And I'll speak to that on a later slide. As you see here, the revenues that we can generate, the district has you may hear that there's a 2% allowance, and that's 2% on the general fund tax increase. There also is the ability for two different types of allowances. One's called spending growth limitation adjustments. One's called on healthcare adjustment, but with the change to state health benefits, there is no healthcare adjustment. And there's also the potential for an enrollment adjustment, but enrollment adjustment requires a 10% increase in a given school year. So there's no enrollment adjustment. And then you have bank cap. And what bank cap exists of is when you do not spend your full spending authority in a prior year, upwards of 3 prior years, you can roll that spending authority forward. This year, we do use some of that spending authority from prior years to make this year's budget. And then there is a state aid increase. State aid is the other place where we can get funding. A year ago, in February, we were notified of a state aid increase of around 1.1. In June, after we created our budget, we learned of a $779,000 reduction. So we had to make cuts in program in the end of June and July. That $779,000 was reestablished by the governor in his proposed budget, and an additional $875,000 was provided in addition of that. So in the paper, they'll say it's a $1.655 million increase. For a district, from a budget to budget standpoint, it's an $875,000 increase over where we were a year ago when we voted on the budget from the state aid perspective. I say proposed budget because the legislature approves the budget at the end of June. And as we learned last year, you could still lose funds after you award your budget. Some of the big category considerations, I've spoken to some of these already, so I'll go through these relatively quickly. I mentioned the healthcare changes and the net impact for the New Jersey Educator Health Plan. The building and grounds, year 2. Transportation, again, about 50 routes not being renewed and going out through rebid. And there is a minimum wage increase that happens mid-year. Financial and operations, I referenced the ESIP costs. Now there's 2 components to that. There's one is the operational cost, but there's also the cap reserve costs, because when we budgeted the ESIP originally, The ESIP came in the terms of approximately, as I said, I believe it was around 27 million. The district had a contribution to reach that goal. And that was because we chose some additional projects above and beyond what the savings would allow us to afford. So the district had to contribute additional funds, and it was done over 2 budget cycles. This is year 2 of the contribution. There are some additional insurance increases, some additional retirement contributions, and some additional healthcare costs. Retirement contributions, some of the additional building and ground staff, it just requires additional district contributions towards their retirement components. Special ed, I referenced the district tuition increase. Again, I referenced over 600, 661. Additional routes were previously referenced. And we do know that there were disrupted programs this year for many of our special education students, and there's going to be some responsibility on behalf of the district to continue to make sure that the educational programs were met, and any educational services that weren't met that we do still have a forward responsibility for. That will be determined through an IEP review process. So we do anticipate some additional COVID-19 impacts around special education. Regarding staffing, we referenced that there were vacancies due to the uncertainties heading into 2021. We have added back some of the RIFT positions of elementary and support positions, being very mindful of next year's class sizes, and also being very mindful of our intervention programs that we can provide for students. Also in the area of special education, there were 3.5 positions that were withheld from being funded that are reestablished in next year's budget. School psychologist, BCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst, occupational therapist, and speech therapist. I referenced capital projects prior, the ESIP payment. There's some additional work at Wyckoff that's being proposed in a phase, an additional phasing in addition to the referendum. And so we are currently under review with that, and more information will be forthcoming, but we are budgeting the money there. If the board chooses not to award that aspect of the project, the money goes back to capital projects. So this is allowing a budgetary allocation for both Wyckoff and additional library funds, that if the board chooses not to award those projects, those funds return to capital projects. But the way the monies work and the process works, you have to allocate it on the budget line. Otherwise, you would not be able to bring that spending authority forward. Board always has a right not to award the projects. There are various HVAC projects built within, a lot of motors and systems upgrades that have been identified in addition to the ESIP or cause of the ESIP work. We found some burned out motors and some roof work that needs to be done around motors up there on a couple different projects. And some work over at one of the town center chillers that is HVAC related. Dutch Neck, there's the outside doors for many of the outside doors at Dutch Neck are in need of repair. So there's some door replacements happening over there, and some additional funds towards the libraries. And there's 9 of the 10 libraries are to be completed through the referendum. As you can imagine, with the referendum, one of the challenges we're seeing is the price of goods has skyrocketed recently. If anyone's tried to do a local project, a kitchen replacement, a bathroom, a fence project, and you've seen the cost of plywood, you've seen the cost of supply and labor skyrocketing. We're facing that with our bidding. And so we are going to have to be very mindful of the closeout of the referendum over the next 2 years. This is a very active summer with projects at Community, South. Grover is actually nearing completion ahead of schedule. Fire alarm work, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, or HVAC work at Millstone and High School North. Media centers should be occurring at Dutch Neck and Millstone River. The High School North projects are out to bid again, and we have gone through the DRC Development Review Committee at Plainsboro, and next we'll head to the Planning Board at Plainsboro on the Wyckoff project before we can move forward with that project. From a budget parameter standpoint, again, just an unknown. Every year it happens. We do not know what our prescription or healthcare costs will be, as we have a mid-year renewal. So we also have to protect ourselves and our budget to make sure that we can absorb any kind of financial hit as we're in motion with our budget. And as I noted, we had a 390,000 increase between January and June this year due to some changes in healthcare selections. And at any point, the district could see such kind of increases again, because only about 30% of our staff made that allocation. So we could still see larger financial impacts if more staff choose the educator healthcare plan that the state is now offering. Again, going back to revenues, I mentioned the 2% in allowances. Then we have the healthcare adjustments, the enrollment adjustments, both are none. There's a bank cap allowance. We have an expiring set of 621,000 in this year's budget. If the board did not authorize that spending authority, we would have to either cut additional programs or we would lose those funds in perpetuity. So this year's budget brings forward the utilization of the $621,243. Next year, it would remain at approximately 392,000. But after the 22-23 school year, bank cap ceases to exist for WWP, as there is no healthcare adjustment, no enrollment adjustments, and our authorizations have expired. So after the 21-22 budget year, or 22-23 budget year, excuse me, the budget will only be allowed to go up at 2%. And there will be some difficult decisions ahead for the district that we'll have to consider. I mentioned the capital reserve projects, and that's the 8.7 million of additional contributions that comes from our capital reserve account. And I mentioned the state aid increase already. When it comes to the enrollment in town, there's a slight increase for West Windsor and a slight decrease for Plainsboro. And the reason why this is important is because our taxes are split across 2 fiscal years, but also based, and they're split on the enrollment component. So it just tells us how our tax base is split. We just want to always take a look at the taxpayer guide to educational spending. Now, this is one of several data points on budget, but we do think we deliver an excellent educational product for a below cost value. So we work really hard to be efficient with our budget, to use the dollars wisely, and to honor our taxpayers, but meeting the needs of our students and our staff. And so just looking historically from 10-11 down, you can see just the way the budget to budget increases go. But you can see the total tax levy increases in the right-hand column. And you can see that this year we're at 2.37%, slightly higher than 2021, but decreased from 2019, 2020. And the important component of this slide, and this is about the allocation of revenues, is really slide line 3 here, the total local funds. 170 million in 2021, 174,698 and 141 in 21-22, differential of $4 million and a change of 2.37%. If we look at 5 budget categories, and we just look at transportation, increase of $1 million, special services, net increase of 644, technology, net increase of 255, salaries, net increase of 2.2, in finance and operations, 766. You're looking at $5 million in increased spending right there, just on 5 budget categories. So when you look at that additional $4 million, you add the 875,000 of state aid, we're basically $5 million up in categories, and the local plus the state tax increase is just about 5 million, and then there's some slight budgetary shifts across the board. But you get a sense that we're using the spending authority, and we have reason to do so with the obligations we have in front of us. How does this impact the taxpayer? In Plainsboro, on the average assessed home, it's a net increase of approximately $177. In West Windsor, it's slightly higher, at an average assessed increase of $266. Now, one of the impacts there is West Windsor had tax appeals in the tune of 37 million that impacted the tax base different, the assessed values different. And that's why you see a slightly different impact to West Windsor than Plainsboro. Again, tonight's budget comes forward with a 2.37% general fund budget to budget increase. And that's the recommendation that was approved by the board on March 9th at the tentative budget. And it's the award the budget we bring forward this evening as well. I'm going to stop sharing screen and open up to members of the board for any questions.
It doesn't look like the board has any questions. Am I right? No. All right. Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. So that will close the public hearing. And that brings us to our opportunity for public comment just on the budget. We'll have 2 opportunities for public comment on everything else you want to talk about, but right now we're going to just talk about the budget. So the board invites thoughts and reactions on the 2021-2022 budget from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this opportunity for public comment on the budget. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. So Dr. Adderhold, do we have any public comments on the budget?
Madam President, we don't have anyone that submitted written comments. We don't have anybody who's signed up to speak.
Thank you. So we will close that. So at this time, I need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 budget. Louisa and Loy, are there any questions or comments about the budget? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McEwen,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Ovich,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes, thank you. And our public hearing will adjourn. Our student representatives have been very patient listening to our presentation on the budget. So at this time, I will turn it over to Eddie and Allison, our High School North reps, to hear what's going on over at High School North.
Hi everyone, good evening. So I wanted to kick off today's report with a Tonight Show update. And so it concluded on Saturday, April 17th of this year. And for a virtual show, the viewership was pretty good. We averaged actually around 250 viewers during the Twitch stream, and all profits generated from audience donations as well as sponsorships from local businesses will be donated to the Emmanuel Cancer Foundation. As for the end of the year event updates, we have the NHS induction, which is going to be on May 20th, senior prom, which is June 4th, and J prom, which is going to be June 12th. And all 3 of these events are going to be in person, and they're going to be taking place in this really nice marquee tent that's going to be coming up this week. And as for graduation, it's going to be on June 18th. And this year, students have an opportunity to choose between 2 options. So the first one is doing a virtual graduation, which is a lot like the type of graduation we did last year. And then there is an in-person option that opened up that's going to be held in the NJ Cure Arena in Trenton. And that's actually where graduation happened in previous pre-COVID years. And so it's good to see that some things are looking more like they did before COVID. And then lastly, coming up this Saturday actually is going to be Senior College Commitment / Declaration Day. And in celebration of this, pictures of students in their college merch are going to be posted on the Senior Class Council Instagram and social media. And then also the week leading up to the commitment day, which actually happens to be this week, is a Senior Spirit Week. And they're having themes like beach throwback and more. Okay, that's all for me. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Eddie. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As usual, I just wanted to talk about some of our club updates. So our HSN climate team has recently conducted a survey whose results will be used to help the team design and implement programs that promote a positive school culture and climate while addressing vulnerabilities for student learning. Our peer leaders have been planning this year's mental health week, as well as working on a video for next year's freshman orientation. Our HOSA team recently competed in HOSA states on March 20th and March 21st. And out of all the competitors, 16 students medaled, and 12 of these students are advancing to the HOSA International Leadership Conference. Additionally, 2 of our high school North students have been elected into HOSA state office. So I just wanted to wish a huge congratulations to Siddharth Satish and Prisha Oza. Our Med Forum has been planning a Med panel call that will be taking place during the first week of May. This call will feature a panel of pre-med and med students who will share their experiences during the application process, as well as their general experiences. For student council, executive board elections for the upcoming 2021 to 2022 school year are taking place right now. And class council elections will be taking place soon, following the end of the executive board elections. Also, third marking period ended on Thursday, April 12th, and we are currently in the last marking period of the school year. And one final update, the spring sports season started recently and will be taking place until June 20th. So that's it for me, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening.
Thank you very much for your reports. We really appreciate it and your patience tonight. That brings us to the first opportunity. Oh no, before I go there, Dr. Adderall, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about at this point?
I can wear out an audience, so I'll just simply say that thank you to our student reps for their patience through the budget presentation. There are some recent changes with the governor with respect to capacity limits, primarily outdoor capacity limits that we're currently evaluating. The Department of Ed just issued some end of year guidance around graduations. Most of it's just see someone else's updates, but they issued something. So we have something to look at. So we'll be doing that this week. It doesn't really change most of our planning because of the outside tent marquee that the district supported. That is going up, as Allison noted, it started going up today. So it's an 80 by 310 foot tent that will allow us to do a lot of the outside events for end of year activities for our high school North, high school South students, with award ceremonies, induction ceremonies, musicals, in a safer environment with outside air flow and socially distanced. Also, of course, graduation, as Allison noted, we are taking precautions and making sure that we have both a videotape component. Caps and gowns at South went out today. I know North is working on it, so that we can do the videotape submissions like we did last year at the end of the year, as well as an in-person component. We know not everyone will be comfortable. We want to make sure that we have a way to recognize all of our students in case some students are not comfortable participating in person. But we also want a backup plan, quite honestly, because prom is about 11 days in front of graduation. And should there be some kind of super spreader event, whether at prom or in the after events, we want to make sure there is an official way to celebrate our students. So we have multiple pathways going here to make sure that we can celebrate our seniors one way or another. Of course, we hope that everything goes off without a hitch, but we want to make sure in a time period of COVID that we don't take any chances here. I do want to also just recognize our equity leadership team and the work at Anthony Jones and student reps and clubs and activities at both North and South and middle schools with preparing for the month of May with AAPI recognition, Asian American Pacific Islander Month. For the month of May, there'll be programming occurring at both schools with assembly opportunities, guest speakers, and specifically want to just recognize some of our clubs our High School North Chinese Club, our High School South Chinese Club, our High School South Asian Diversity Initiative, our High School South Korean Student Union, our High School North SASA, our High School South SASA. All organizations have been involved in helping to plan events at the high school level and working with our club and activity advisors. So thank you to all for the work they're doing in recognition of AAPI month coming up in May.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reaction on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their video and audio will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes.
Madam
We'll
President,
start-
we don't have anyone that signed up to speak at the
Okay.
meeting, but we do have one written comment.
Okay, thank you.
So if it's okay, I'll read the written comment.
Perfect.
The written comment tonight comes from Jennifer Rickards. And the comment is, the special education parent community in WWP is eager to see the draft report from the program review that was recently completed. But as we all know, a report is simply that, a document, and the real meaning happens when actions take place based on what was learned. We all know that there are improvements to be made to better serve our special needs students. WWP Special Education Parent Teacher Student Association, or SEPSTA, looks forward to working closely with the district administration on examining the recommendations from this review and identifying how best to move forward and actually improve how special education services are delivered in WWP. We believe that the parental leadership is absolutely critical in ensuring that this review does not simply sit on a virtual shelf, but is used in a meaningful way and was worth the significant effort everyone put into it. We are excited to read the draft report when it comes to the board in the next few weeks, but are more excited to roll up our sleeves and work with James Earl, Karen Slagle, and the special services staff to make WWP the best district possible for all our students, especially students with IEPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That will close our first opportunity for public comment. Now it's time. Dr. Adwell, do you have anything?
I could simply say we're eager to read the report as well, so we have not received it. But we have worked with PCG, which is a consultant. We set forward a timeline to work on building an action plan so that when the report is publicly made available in September, and we'll have a public presentation at the September board meeting, that will have an action plan that will be representative with parent involvement, staff involvement, administrative involvement, and we appreciate the comments from SEPSA and look forward to working with them through the process.
Thanks. So at this time, we're going to hear from our committee chairs to get the committee reports. We begin with the Administration and Facilities Committee, and for that, I will turn it over to Tony Flaris.
Thank you. The Administration and Facilities excuse me, met on April 20th. As usual, we began with a update provided by Dr. Adderhold concerning the progress of virtual and hybrid school operations. He shared that the return for more students to in-person instruction is going well. Approximately 65% of the students remain on virtual instruction, and about 35% are attending school in person. As we enter the fourth quarter, the district is preparing for an increase in student activities and award ceremonies. As was mentioned before, a large tent at High School North will be installed in order to ensure the ability to hold events such as the National Honor Society induction, high school musicals, junior prom, and a variety of other district events. The district also continues to review schedules in order to develop the fall master schedules and safely accommodate more students and staff on grounds. Some of the challenges include implementing the current social distancing requirements and managing large lunch groupings, particularly at the high school level. Then we discussed policies and regulations revisions. You'll see on your agenda, there's first reading for policies concerning employment of support staff members, political contributions, student records, and recruitment by special interest groups. The changes made are relatively minor. They're really driven by the change of the new Every Student Succeeds Act, replacing the No Child Left Behind Act, and most of the changes are just references to the new laws. Also on your agenda for the second reading, and we recommend their approval during the voting portion of the meeting, revisions to the Earned Sick Leave Law, Every Student Succeeds Act, Title I fiscal responsibilities, student surveys, analysis, and/or evaluations, Every Student Succeeds Act complaints for policy and for the regulation. And again, as was mentioned at our last meeting, those changes are mostly driven by changes to the law and references to different code sections and terms, and doesn't really affect the way the district does business. Also on your agenda tonight is the AVID contract for the 2021-2022 school year. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and is a program that supports students with high academic potential that are in need of targeted supports and intervention. The program is being phased in over 4 years, and a new 9th grade cohort is identified each academic year. Then we got an update on athletics. And the spring athletic season has begun with athletics returning to the middle school students at Grover and Community. Students at High School South and High School North have begun competitions. Health protocols are being strictly enforced. Unfortunately, the district had to quarantine the North girls lacrosse team due to a positive COVID-19 case. Additionally, the district has concluded the interview process for the head football coach and is recommending the hire on tonight's agenda. The district expects to open athletics fully for the fall 2021 season. Concerning the special education review, the district consultant, public consulting group, has completed data collection for all special education reviews. This past week, the members of the administration and PCG began working on a timeline to charge an action planning committee. PCG plans to deliver a draft report to the administration in May. Concerning the referendum, Dr. Adderhall provided a general overview of all the projects. The highlights included a review of High School South, Grover Middle School, and Community Middle School expansion projects. HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning upgrades at North and Millstone River with various components of the project are making substantial progress. The Grover addition is targeted for completion by June of this year. Phase 2 of the South renovations and additions are progressing well, with the remaining utility and earthwork being addressed this spring. Work on the playhouse is predominantly above the ceiling at the catwalk level, and electrical work for lighting and power for the theatrical equipment is progressing. Demolition has been substantially completed at the library, child growth and development room, and the guidance child study team area. Also on that Tuesday, the district architect and Dr. Adderhold presented the Wyckoff Elementary expansion to Plainsboro's Development Review Committee. The committee's authorized the project to move forward to the Plainsboro Planning Board. Concerning equity, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator, Mr. Anthony Jones, continues to collaborate with staff and students to implement events for Women's History Month across the district. Planning continues regarding Pan-Asian American Heritage Month in May. And structures to build a strategic plan for the implementation of Strategic Goal 4, the equity goal, are underway. And to that end, the leadership team and subcommittees have been named to develop the next steps. Finally, we reviewed a revised job description for the media specialist job, and the committee recommends its approval on tonight's meeting, at tonight's meeting. Next meeting is scheduled for May 18th. Are there any questions?
Okay, seeing as there doesn't look to be any questions, I will now turn it over to Dana Krug, who'll give us the report coming out of the Curriculum Committee.
Hello, good evening. The Curriculum Committee also met on Tuesday, April 20th. Rich Steck joined us. He's the district K-12 science supervisor, and he shared the vetting process for selecting a new textbook for the high school science class, Descriptive Astronomy. After several textbooks from various publishers were vetted by the teachers who teach this course, OpenStax was selected because of its alignment with the district's strategic goal work and its ability to support teaching and learning in astronomy. Next, Melissa Pearson also joined us. She's the district's K-5 math supervisor, and she shared a new math resource called Foundational Math. This too was vetted, this time by a team of elementary building leaders, supervisors, teacher resource specialists, and basic skills math teachers who met with the vendors. They reviewed the print resources in digital format, student resources and manipulatives, online tools, and other digital resources. The team recommended Bridges in Mathematics program. The comprehensive program includes components for number routines, rich texts, investigations, and explorations to support the development of deep mathematical understanding. All resources to support the philosophy and structures of math workshop. The committee recommends the adoption of Bridges, foundational math resource for elementary grades K-5. The implementation will be a multi-year progression, starting with kindergarten, first and fifth grade in year 1, which would be next year to 21-22 of the rollout. Next, the committee recommends approval of the preschool summer virtual camps, which are being offered by Community Ed. The committee also recommends approval of an agreement with Northwest Evaluation Association to supply the web-based measures of academic progress, or many of us know as MAP, in math, reading, and language arts assessments for students in English and also in Spanish. The cost of the materials through next year, June of 2022, is approximately, it's just under $62,000. The committee also recommended approval of several professional development opportunities, all of which will be virtual. 3 staff members to attend a 1-week Teachers College Summer Reading Institute in either July or August at a cost of $850 each. 1 staff member to attend a 1-week Teachers College Summer Writing Institute in August at a cost of $850, and 1 staff member to attend a 1-week Teachers College Summer Phonics Institute in August, also at $850, and 3 staff members to attend a 1-day Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Rutgers University workshop in May at a cost of $200 per person. Our next committee meeting date is Tuesday, May 18th.
Thanks, Dana. Does anybody have any questions about the curriculum report? All right, I'll turn it over now to get the Finance Committee's report, and for that, I'll turn it to Louisa Ho.
Thank you. The Finance Committee had a virtual meeting on Tuesday, April 20th. First, the committee reviewed agenda items for today's meeting. Staff briefed the committee on the budget hearing to be held today. Also, the committee reviewed the finance section of the board agenda. Staff shared the monthly financial reports and indicated that no lines are overexpended and there are sufficient funds to complete the year. The budget is tracking similarly to prior months with a 4.98% reduction in the total amount of the budget spent to date. The reduction is due primarily to self-funding healthcare and the lag in processing monthly claims, and that the district is holding some positions vacant. There are several motions on the upcoming agenda for referendum purchases, including state contract purchases of door controllers and communication devices, including installation at CMS, cooperative purchase agreements for audio, video, communication, and science equipment for CMS and Grover. Also included is the cooperative purchase of 2,700 Dell Chromebooks as part of our technology refresh. This represents replacement Chromebooks for 3 grade levels. 3 change orders are included on the agenda, 2 for salt storage sheds and 1 for the high school south site work. Also, there is a motion to dispose of obsolete equipment. The majority of the finance section of the agenda consists of transportation items. There are many motions to renew transportation contracts within the allowable consumer price index increase of 1.69% for the 2021-22 school year. There is also a quote for a special ed route and various transportation jointures. Finally, there are requests for approval of several virtual workshops and conferences for staff members. After this, the administration discussed the next steps for the 21-22 budget. Administration will meet with Plainsboro municipal officials next Tuesday to discuss the budget. Hard copy of the final budget calendar was shared with the committee. The public hearing will be virtual and take place on April 27th, tonight. The net taxable value of West Windsor decreased by more than 37 million for the tax impact calculation. In addition, the value of the averaged assessed home went up by over $1,200. These changes that are out of the district's control caused a slightly higher tax impact than if the value of the community had remained the same. Township officials shared that this should be a 1-year issue, as it is anticipated that the new housing coming online should offset the current year decrease in value. Staff updated the committee on construction in the district for both capital and referendum. I think Tony covered the referendum work pretty well already. The majority of the energy savings improvement projects are complete. They are still working on commissioning, graphic interface programming, staff training, and punch list items. The solar installation continues at Hawk, High School South, and High School North. These projects should be completed for a summer startup. There will be an agenda item in May for a change order to the ESIP for the energy recycling ventilator replacement at Village and the various rooftop unit repairs at Grover, as anticipated in the 21-22 budget under capital reserve projects. The district still needs to approve a 2-year agreement beyond the 1-year warranty to monitor the performance of the equipment. We need this in order to satisfy the requirements to get the final 1.1 million rebate, which is part of an incentive program. The agreement may be on the board agenda in May. Dr. Adderholt updated the committee on how the return of additional students to in-person instruction went last week. Overall, it went well. The teaching staff required for in-person instruction returned as required. Overall, the staff and administration appeared happy with the return of the students. We did have to quarantine the High School North girls lacrosse team due to a COVID situation. The goal is to have graduation at the Cure Arena this June based on current guidelines. Changes will have to be made to normal procedures to maintain social distancing. The committee is next meeting on Tuesday, May 18th.
Thank you, Louisa. Are there any questions for the Finance Committee? All right, we'll move ahead now to the portion of the agenda where we get to vote. We'll begin with administration items 1 through 8. Can I please get a motion? Tony and Morton. Are there any questions or comments on the administration items? Thank you, Chris.
Start with Ms. Ho,
Yes.
then Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield, Ms. Ovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flares,
Could I please get a motion on curriculum and instruction items 1 to 5? Dana and Graylin. Are there any questions or comments on the curriculum items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Ovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
yes,
Ms. Ho,
yes,
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes. Could I please get a motion on finance items 1 to 70? Loy and Louisa, are there any questions or comments on the finance items? Louisa warned us about this. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you, Chris.
Let's start with Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Ovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
yes,
Ms. Ho,
yes,
Ms. Krug.
We didn't hear you, Dana.
he's muted.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes, but I need to abstain, please, on item number 70. So yes on everything else.
Okay,
Could I please get a motion on personnel items 1 and 2, plus the addendum? Robin and Rachel, are there any questions or comments on the personnel items? Do you have something, Charity? No. Okay, thank you, Chris.
we'll start with Ms. Maliga,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Ovich,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes,
Ms. Ho,
yes,
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes. On tonight's agenda, we voted on a number of retirements that I would like to acknowledge at this time. Karen Slagle, our Director of Special Services, is retiring after 5 years with the district. Linda Buer, an elementary school teacher at Maurice Hawk, is retiring after 23 years with the district. Vicki Cox is a teacher resource specialist for reading intervention, and she's retiring after 32 years with the district. Mark Dorfman teaches science at High School South, and he's retiring after 31 years in the district. Diane Kosar is a teacher of special education, and she's retiring after 16 years with the district. And Lisa O'Shea, IRLA teacher at CMS, is retiring after 33 years with the district. These 6 employees represent 140 collective years of service to our school district. It's just incredible. And I want to thank them all for all their hard work and the legacy that they leave behind. And I wish them happy, healthy retirement ahead. Can I please get a motion to approve our minutes from March 23rd? Louisa and Dana, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed or abstention?
Abstain.
You got that, Chris? Thank you, Graylin. Are there any liaison reports? Is there any new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes.
Madam President, nobody signed up.
And that will close our second opportunity for public comment. Thank you. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Martin and Rachel, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks for coming out tonight. We'll see you next time.
Have a great evening.